Well, welcome everybody. I am so excited because we have Melissa on the podcast today to share insights and strategies around toilet training, but particularly around withholding, because so many families experience this and toilet avoidance. And although you mightn't be interested in toileting, I think you're going to get some great tips from Melissa anyway, whatever your goals are, because she brings not only the experience of being a special education teacher, but a speechy who provides lots of tools and resources, which I'll link to in the podcast. And so she's going to give us lots of ideas. And I don't think it matters what your goal is. I think some of these strategies will work for you about how to use social scripts or children who are avoiding things. What do we do? So welcome, Melissa.
Thanks, Sue. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Where do I begin? So I started my career as a special education teacher. And in my first year of teaching, I had a mainstream kindergarten class. But there was nothing mainstream about that class. There were so many children with additional needs, many of them neurodiverse, some of them diagnosed, some of them not. And I came across your PD up here in Newcastle, and I went along and I learned all about visual supports and social stories. And I went and implemented some of those strategies with my class, and the results were life-changing. And it really sparked my interest for all things visual supports and social stories. And then a couple of years into teaching, I had the opportunity to have a speech pathologist in my classroom with me, which was amazing. And I really liked what she was doing. I liked that the speeches could really get to the nitty-gritty of helping individual children. I bit the bullet and went back and retrained as a speech pathologist. And here I am, 20 years later, can you believe?
How many years is it?
It would be 20 at least.
I was going to say, I think it was very early on that I was in Newcastle and you came to my workshop, because I did used to talk so much more about visuals back in the day, because that's what I did my master's on. And now so many people just use visuals without thinking. But originally it was quite different using visuals when we first started using them as social scripts. Like people like, what do you mean? What are they? And also now with technology, the fact we can just Google and get a visual really easily. But back 20 years ago, we had to pay for Compic or visuals or be able to draw, which I never could, or like take a photo was really important, and even taking out the background of photos, making sure there's nothing distracting. Whereas now you can just get on Canva and boom, take the background out, boom. So
that's right. And the great thing that I love about visual supports is that it's a permanent, consistent prompt. So if you give a verbal message, it's gone instantly. And that's too quick for a lot of our neurodiverse kids. But if you give them the visual, not only are you saving your voice, which is so important, but you're letting that child process that information in their own time and space. And that's life-changing for a lot of our kids.
100%, which is... So when you met me 20 years ago, my special interest was visuals. And now my special interest is executive functioning. Oh. And if you think about executive functioning, when a visual's left up, that you don't rely on the child's working memory. If they're distracted by other things in the room, they can refer back to it.
That's right.
So if you think about to execute a task, the executive functioning, all the skills required. But if it's verbal, we have to block out noise, remember. And so that's why visuals and executive functioning go so well together, I think, as a partnership, because
absolutely.
Yeah.
The social stories are almost a step on from that too, because as a teacher, I loved teaching concepts through stories. And then social stories are just such a lovely, gentle way to introduce that new concept or new routine. And it's a great way for parents to sometimes just start the conversation about a taboo topic or a new topic with their child in more of a gentle way, so it's not as intimidating.
But also I think for parents and teachers, we forget other children work this out innately. I don't know why, but they just work it out.
Yes.
And I like what Anna Tallerman says, social scripts improve the child's social understanding. They're not about behavior. They're understanding that, look, if you lose an activity or you you don't get something you want, how can you react? And many of our children don't know how to react, and we assume they do. Yeah, I love that. Okay, we better get on to all this toileting stuff as well. But as I say, I think this, what you're going to talk about, doesn't matter what skill you're teaching a child, there's a lot to be said. Can you just sort of tell my audience, like, why is toileting so difficult or different for neurodiverse kids?
I know. And there can be so many reasons why. So, yeah, let's try and break down some of the different smaller reasons. And I think the first big one that we know is that neurodivergent children can struggle with any routine change or new routine. And let's face it, toilet training is a huge routine change. Not only does the routine change, but the actual toilet or toilet room can change depending on where the child is throughout the day. So you might have an upstairs and a downstairs toilet in your own home. That would be different to grandma's toilet or the daycare toilet, the school toilet, out at the park or at the shops. Not only is it a new routine, but they're being asked to adapt to a different style a lot of the time, every time they're doing that. So that's the first big reason. Neurodivergent children can really struggle to transition from one activity to another, which we know. So being asked to pause their play or pause something that they're highly interested in to go and have toilet time, that's not going to be motivating for a lot of our children, and particularly if they're hyper-focused on that current activity. A lot of neurodivergent kids too that we know, they also have coexisting language difficulties. So they can struggle not only to understand all that vocabulary around toilet training, but applying the vocabulary as well. And if we think about it, there's so many mini concepts involved in toilet training. There's the physical process, turn on the light, pull down pants, pull down underwear. There's pushing out the poo. There's working out the toilet paper. There's washing the hands. So there's so many new vocabulary words to be taking on board too. And as we also know, neurodivergent children, they can also experience a range of sensory challenges, which can really impact the whole toileting process. From how bright the light is in the toilet room, maybe the toilet seat is too cold, maybe the toilet paper feels rough, how the wee or poo feels as it's coming out. These are all challenges. And then I think because our kids, it's within our nature to avoid things that are challenging, what we then find is that sometimes children can start to stool withhold, which is where they're physically trying to hold in their poos as a way of avoiding that uncomfortable situation. And that's where we can see chronic constipation start to happen.
Yeah. And I've seen this in so many children, and especially when I worked in the autism school with 5-year-olds who would often come in nappies or holding all day their poos. And then we'd get what we called sneaky poo, but I think it has a technical name like do you know the name?
Yeah, it's endopresis.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a really tricky one. It's where you see that staining of the underwear, and it's nothing to do with what the child's doing. It's not their fault at all. It's just that the anal sphincter can get quite stretched.
Yes.
And then the new liquid poo that's coming through the colon actually seeps through the old hardened poo.
Yeah.
Out in the underwear, and the children don't even know that it's happening and they can't even feel it.
No, exactly. I'm not laughing, but I'm just thinking of one of my students one day that I don't know what his mum gave him, but that big poo came out, literally blocked our toilet at the school because it was so big.
Yeah.
I just want to remind people that for many of our children, you've got to rule this out around behavior. If you've ever been constipated or had this big poo, because that little boy was so different after that poo came out. Like, I cannot tell you what a different child he was, like sensory, communication.
Yeah.
Before that, he was saying no, 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 no to everything. Right. And I sort of get teary because I'd imagine sitting with such a big poo that you can't concentrate on anything, but you also don't know how it feels not to have it. Does that,
Exactly right. And what you've mentioned there, that megacolon, that really large bowel motion, that can be one of the telltale signs of stool withholding, is that they've withheld for so long that so much water is being absorbed by that bowel motion inside them. And then when they do push it out, it's huge. So yeah, keeping on track of the size of the poos is a really good idea.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that when I'm doing toileting, I always do a chart because often there's different people And now with phones on your notes, you can share that note. If anyone's going, oh, that's just everyone can have a shared notes if you have an Apple phone, and people can add notes to that. And I'm all about let's keep it like I like a WhatsApp group and I like the notes so people can put, we had a small bowel motion, large bowel motion, or because what I've learned over the years, and probably you have too, that ultimately children do tend to have a set time for that bowel motion once things are settled down. So the advantage of just quickly writing that in your phone, what time things happen, you start to know the child's biology really. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know we've gone down a few things, but I just want to say, number one, when you talked about the routine change, I think this is the thing people have to remember. This child's had a nappy on since the day they were born. Like they know no different. So this is why the social scripts can be so helpful, and we'll come to that because all they know is this thing happens in my nappy. Yeah.
Without even thinking about it. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that transition stuff you talked about. And I don't want to jump ahead of what you might be saying, but when I'm such a toileting has to be a routine. And one of the reasons I say that is one of the things you mentioned about communication, because parents will often say to the child, do you need to go to the toilet? Yes or no? The child's going to say no every day. Don't make it a choice, because some of our children with speech difficulty, is that we call it speech differences, difficulty? What language are we using there?
Yeah, well, it can be speech sounds, so that could be speech difficulties, but then there's also language difficulties, what they're having difficulty understanding or using the words. So,
Thank you. It's more that. Because sometimes with little children, when I work with kids with autism, the second word you say is the one they're going to say. So if you say yes or no, they'll say no. Because of their working memory, they can only remember the second word. So if you swap it over and you go no or yes, they might say yes, which tells you they don't understand yes and no. So
exactly. And they might even know what it feels like to need to go to the toilet. So
100% because of interoception, which I've done lots of podcasts on. But okay, Melissa. So I love this. And I know, as I said to you in our emails, just treat it like we're having a cup of coffee and a chat in and out the windows. So I know that you've covered some amazing reasons why this can be so hard for our children. So what can we do then? Because this is like you've pointed out so many challenges just to go to the toilet.
That's right. In terms of tips and strategies for parents and also teachers as well, because remembering that a lot of our kids aren't just in the home environment, they're going to be at daycare or school as well, and having that consistency across all environments that we know is so important. But what I would say first up is try to create some toilet training mini goals. For many of our diverse and neurodiverse children, toilet training is like the long-term goal. It might take a year, it might take 5 years, it could take a week, but try to look at toilet training as that term, as the long-term goal. So be kind to yourself and be kind with your child and try to break it down into some smaller mini goals. So it might be doing 5-minute toilet sits after every meal. It might be following along with the wiping process, using a visual schedule for that. It might even be taking a laxative medication for if they're experiencing constipation to help with that. So breaking it down into those smaller goals can really help to just reduce that overwhelm. And it gives you more to celebrate when your child makes progress, which is super important. The second thing I would say is go visual. And that's probably not a surprise now, given what we've talked about, that's the second tip for you. So many of our neurodivergent children, they're such strong visual learners. Like that's their strength. So let's play to their strengths. And that means that they learn best through pictures, images, photos, physical prompts. So use visual supports. The more predictable and consistent that we can keep this toileting routine, the easier it's going to be for them to learn that routine. So you might have a visual support for the sitting on the toilet, or visual supports for the wiping process, or even the hand washing process. And then what you're doing is incorporating that mini goal into the visual supports of your daily routine. So it might be first lunch, then 5-minute toilet sit, or it might be first medication, then lunch, something like that. So the child can see it's a part of their day and they can see what's happening before and after. The last strategy I have is to definitely implement a social story for that mini goal that you're working on. As we've said, social stories are those simple stories with pictures or photos, and they're just they produce that, they show that concept in a really simple way. And they're great because the child can go away and just take in those concepts in their own time and space, not necessarily when we're sitting directly working with them. So this can help to then guide that behavior and lower that anxiety. And again, focus on the mini goal that you're working on with toileting. So you might have a social story around the wiping process. You might have a social story around how to push out their poos. You might have a social story around taking laxative medication, why that's important to help with their constipation.
I love that. I love it. Now, one of the things I know we struggled with when I was at the autism school is around like visuals about poo in the toilet. Like it is hard to do that. Do you have any hints or suggestions how to do that social script? Like how explicit do we need to be?
Yeah, I think toileting needs to be, I think we need to take away the taboo behind toileting, and it's a natural bodily function that occurs with every single person on the planet. And it's no different to any other routine that we're trying to show a neurodiverse child. Is so be explicit. The social stories that I've prepared with the wiping process and the pushing out their poos, it shows what that looks like in the toilet. And that can be what the child needs. And if nothing else, we can have a laugh at it and introduce some humor behind it so that it's not as taboo, I think.
Absolutely. And just back on that new routine, I often say to parents, because one of the challenges is getting the child to go in there, the toilet. And I say to parents, you need to start, before you even start toilet training, you need the child to go with you because neurotypical children follow their parents. I can assure you, my 3 little kids, when were little, as soon as I went to the toilet, one of them would need me and they'd come on in, right? Whereas most neurodivergent children often aren't following. They're not doing that parallelly with the people in their world. And so part of it is modeling. So I don't think it's just about, that is a social script. You saying, oh, I need the toilet and getting the child to come with you.
Yes.
Showing them your poo, showing them your wee,
Yeah.
showing them how you have to sit because some of my children expect it to come straight out. They have no idea. And maybe sing a song in there or whatever you need to do. But I think the first step has to be that modeling it, and modeling it includes you modeling it. And as you say, stop the taboo around it, actually show the child the process and maybe get them to help you with the toilet paper or pull up your pants so that they coactively doing that before you actually make them sit on the toilet, because that could be quite scary.
Absolutely. And using the visual schedule while you're using the toilets, showing them each step and labeling each step, pants down, underwear down, sitting down, just simply labeling it is all part of the modeling as well.
I love that. And the child could be moving the visuals down as you do each one. I love that. The other thing, people who are like, they're touching things, that's why you laminate it and always make a couple of copies because if one ends up down the toilet, which I've had happen on many occasions, it's just easy to have 3 copies on hand. Like just make lots of social scripts, make lots of visuals. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing you said about routine is I believe we all have toileting routines. My guess is you personally, if you're on yard duty, teachers listening, you go, I do it at the start or the end of your yard duty. Like we all have routines around toileting that most of us don't have the it's not like you just get to go whenever you want. So I think developing those routines are really important because coming back to my new special interest, executive functioning, that task initiation.
Yes.
To actually initiate is really hard. And in my experience, most neurodivergent children will never initiate the toilet. They just get in a routine.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's where you can show it on your daily routine. They can see the whole day. They can see exactly when their toilet time is coming and they can then prepare themselves for that a little bit rather than feeling like it's just sprung on them in that moment. Yeah.
100%. 100%. And so just with the holding and the social scripts, I like people to have a bit of a time frame.
Yeah.
How long do you think, if we're doing a mini goal of getting a child to just sit on the toilet and maybe have a try at pushing out a poo, and using a social script and all the things you've said,
Yes.
how long should people persist before they're like, okay, this isn't working?
Yeah, that's a hard one because it is going to be so individual for every child. I think you want to plan the mini goals so that you're going to get some success fairly quickly. And then if you're not getting some success after a week or two, maybe you're going to tweak the mini goal. So instead of sitting on the toilet for 10 minutes, maybe you're just going to sit on the toilet for 1 minute. Start super small and then you can always increase it as time goes on. But you want to get that early success, don't you?
Yeah, but I like what I love. We didn't pre-organize this. At least a week. So many people expect like instant, but if a child only poos once a day,
Yeah.
that's only 7 attempts.
Yes.
It's not a lot of attempts. Like you've got to put it in that perspective. Or if you've got a child doing lots of those little smeary poos,
Yes.
they're going to take longer to push out that big poo. So we could be talking 2 weeks.
That's right.
I just think I often get emails from people, oh, we've tried. And I'm like, for how long? Like 2 days. No. This child's had this routine for 5 years minimum.
Yep.
5 years minimum. They're probably 5 years of age. You've tried all the neurotypical stuff. It hasn't worked.
Yes.
Do something different. It's not a 1 week goal here for the poo.
That's right.
Wheeze, you can get success within a week, without a doubt, because there's so many more opportunities to get success.
Yes, for sure. And I often tell my families too that with toilet training, it often requires you to gather a whole toolbox of resources. So trying one strategy is probably not going to cut it. You need to try multiple strategies, have a whole toolbox at your ready. If one thing doesn't work, try something else. Check in with your occupational therapist or speech pathologist to help you tweak those mini goals. So there's support out there as well. Don't feel like you have to do it all on your own.
Yeah, but I also say to parents, like, how much are you spending on nappies?
Yeah.
Put that money back in the family budget. Reward yourself for doing this. So go and get your nails done or take away one night. Or because it is I think we reward the child, but we forget we're rewarding too. And this is a big goal. Taking on doing the poos particularly is a really hard one. And some of our children have been in such a routine and you're going to get behavior. They're going to be cranky. Because as I say, holding a poo can make you cranky. Yeah. Or if the child's doing lots of smearing in their undies, they can be very smelly. I'm sure you've experienced that too, Melly, because it's such old poo. It can be quite gross.
Yeah.
So what I would say is just go to Big W, Target, just buy cheap undies.
Yes.
Throw them away like you would a nappy. You don't have to be dealing with dirty undies. Or one of my families, I'm like, let's just go to the secondhand uniform shop, buy a whole lot of secondhand shorts instead of one new pair. And so you try and make it easier for yourself. So when Melissa's saying have a toolkit, it's also about having a toolkit to help you. If you're not one who likes poo, then what's going to work for you? Are you going to buy yourself a nice scented candle? Well, do it.
That's right. That to make the bathroom smell nicer. That's right. And what's interesting about what you mentioned with the staining on the undies, often families get frustrated when their child has that in their underwear and they'll say, oh, you didn't let us know. But often the child is so used to that smell, they don't even smell it themselves. So it's just remembering to be patient with your child in those circumstances as well.
No, 100%, 100%. Well, Melissa, this has been so helpful. I will link to all your resources. And if people want those ready-made social scripts, you've made some wonderful little books and things that I think will really make a difference because, again, if that's going to help you do the goal, it's worth getting Melissa's tried. And you can spend hours trying to make them. But I always say, someone like Melissa's got all the experience. So I would recommend have a look at that. And can parents buy it with their NDIS? I should have asked you earlier.
Ooh, I don't know, actually. That's a good question.
Yeah.
A question for their plan managers.
Yeah, ask your plan managers. I always think, what's the worst thing I can say? No, you can't.
That's true.
Because personally, I think that's a very important resource. And I know families, money, it's another thing. But I think if getting your child out of nappies, you're probably spending $30, $40 a week minimum on nappies anyway.
For sure.
And I don't know about your experience, Melissa, but the longer the child is in nappies, the worse that holding gets.
That's right. It becomes so habitual and gets so good at it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even with laxatives, they just develop the strongest muscles to hold on. So the more you can normalize pooing in the toilet, the earlier, the better for everybody.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say too, if anyone has a child with PDA, because PDAs will hold because their body's demanding it, this is why the routine's so important, and going before the child needs to go can be really important. But what I would say with PDAs is you've just got to make it low. Let them be in control. Let them have autonomy. But again, that autonomy can come with, how about get them to tell you need the toilet? Like just swing it round a bit. Like, Mum, it's time to get them to be telling you, and then you're taking them in there. Like just,
Right.
you've just got to, dare I say, do the dance.
Yeah. Do a little dance.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for giving up your valuable time and sharing with us so many great tips. And I hope everybody who does have a child who's holding gets to put some strategies in place. But as I say, no matter what your goal, I think there's some good tips here for all children.
Thanks, Sue. It's been great to have the discussion and bring a little normalcy to the whole topic. So thank you.
Thanks so much. I hope you've got some great tips and strategies from this podcast. If you enjoy learning with me, I highly recommend you think about doing a course this year. Not only do I have courses by me, I have them with people with a lived experience, Temple Grandin, Dean Beadle, or other educators like Laura Kirby on PDA. I have a wealth of courses that'll make a difference to you. So make sure you check out all my online courses, because you can learn online, anywhere, anytime, in a place that suits you, at a speed that suits you. So check out all the online courses that are available to make a difference to you and the children you know.